Thank you. I rise in opposition to both these motions, or both these amendments, for the following reasons. Number one, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, there are some inherent duties and powers of the President. And one of those, I would argue, would be the disposition of prisoners of war, particularly American prisoners of war, particularly American prisoners of war who are sick and who are obviously, through our intelligence apparatus, found to have suffered some kind of a setback, and their physical disposition has declined markedly. What is a president to do when, as Commander-in-Chief, as granted by the Constitution, he's confronted with a statute which must yield to the Constitution, a statute that ties his hands and says that you must give us 30 days notice with respect to your disposition of a foreign POW, but we don't call them POWs. There's another legislative act that concludes that this is a special class of fighter. It's an enemy combatant. And whether or not international law and treaties that the United States has signed and are bound to recognize that particular class, I do not know. But with respect to the exchange of POWs, the legislative branch is not in a position constitutionally, I would argue, to tie the president's hands and say that you must give us 30 days notice before you engage in a prisoner exchange. And so I believe that the underlying legislation is probably unconstitutional. And if it had been followed in this current climate, I think the president would have been stopped by a legislature which does nothing but obstruct him every time he does something. You stand in the way of it and say no. I believe that Sergeant Bergdahl, with his precarious physical condition, would be dead at this point, waiting on Congress to debate and decide in this do-nothing Congress that we're going to authorize the president to be the commander-in-chief. Come on, let's face it. What this is, ladies and gentlemen, is just another extension of the movement to impeach President Obama. This is another step on the way. The first step is to sue the president. So we've wasted 3 weeks of legislative time before our well-earned 5-week vacation, putting in all of the legal, all of the legislative activity designed so that we can vote at the end of this week to authorize one house of Congress to sue the president. Now, who among us does not think that this step is a precursor to the drawing of articles of impeachment? Who among us does not believe that?
Will the gentleman yield?
I see a lot of members on the other side, but they will be the first ones to raise their hand and say aye when the president is impeached, because they talk about it all the time. And so this is a move in that direction to support the legislation that we're considering this week, which will authorize the House of Representatives, the Republicans, to file suit against the president for not carrying out the law, which was to postpone the mandate of the Affordable Care Act, the employer mandate. That's what he's going to be sued for. But the overall narrative that is being created is that the president is lawless and he doesn't abide by the rule of law. He's a socialist. He's not a Christian. He's not one of us. Let's get rid of him. So it's a coup. And with that, I will yield back.